good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Alex Sunga, matrix number BA192711133, and the purpose of this video is for the UB00202 oral communication in English final project interview. So, as a representative of the Group 1, Section 54, my group members have specifically chosen the topic that focuses about the impacts and influence of movies towards the younger generations. First of all, for my process is finding a suitable respondent for this interview project, finalizing the interview date and schedule, and making sure the respondent is comfortable in answering and talking in this type of situation, asking consent before the interview start, and lastly, conducting the interview itself. For the summary, respondent believes that they are both good and bad, and it really depends on the mindset of the individual whether or not the movie has a good or bad influence. So it really depends on how they perceive it. Respondent uses his favorite movie, Coach Carter, as an example of a good influencing movie for younger generation and all types of generation, as it teaches a lot of good moral values as said by him. For parents intervention, the respondent believes it really depends on the parents itself, on how the children perceive or what they watch. It depends on how controlling they are, so it doesn't really matter. So movies influence are dependent on the younger generation's mindset, emphasizing individuality as well, whether or not they can perceive the message of the movie and what they relay. Depends if it's good or bad. Again, depends on the mindset of the individual. If given the opportunity to direct a movie, my respondent believes that a true story-based movie is better, as it perceives a more realistic moral value and people can learn from it better since it's more realistic compared to fantasies. So, as a self reflection, I believe the overall interview was a success. However, the respondent was in a hurry of most of his answers, as well as it's very quick and precise and may come across as lack of in-depth illustrations. But as a future nerd, I would prefer finding a less busy person to conduct this interview. So the interview's opinion makes a lot of sense, as it does not really emphasize on the movie itself for being the influence of a bad or good influence to younger generations, but rather focus on the individuality of the person and the freedom of will to perceive its moral values. So, lastly, the respondent's general knowledge are mostly based on his own life experiences and how most of his answers are justified by his experiences itself and how it's based on it. So, that's all for me. Thank you very much for watching this.
Assalamualaikum and hello, my name is Rita binti Robert Rawantas. My matrix number is BP2016044, and this is my process summary and self-reflection about the interview done with my respondent. So the interview was done on the 23rd of May 2021 after a few days of arranging and waiting, so with the line problems and everything else. So the interview was done on Sunday because that was my respondent off day. So I was kind of feel a little bit guilty because I'm stealing her me time. So the interview was done about 45 minutes, and when I transcribed it and edited, it took about 17 minutes long video. So during the process, I wish I turned the subtitles on the Google Meet, so I don't have to retype the subtitles or transcript it manually. And it was a fun interview because me and my respondent haven't talked in a while. We used to run together in trail run, especially. We are both ultra trail runner. So for the summary, my respondent was actually a deep thinker. We both love to watch movies, especially on Netflix and on cinema before the pandemic hit. And my respondent do think that movies in every generation will some sort of entertaining the generations itself. Therefore, there will always be a good and bad movies, and we just have to choose wisely on what to watch. So on this topic especially, my respondent thinks that parent roles is very important in monitoring and supervising their children's, especially the children's underage or young children's. So for self-reflection, I am actually very thankful to my respondent for, even though she knows that this is just an assignment, she answered all my questions sincerely And she also not just answering, but she has very deep thought about my questions. At first I thought the conversation will be stiff, but it's not. It's fun, and I do use some skills that I learned from social work intervention to get more input from her about my questions, like what are her thoughts about the impacts and influence of the movies towards the younger generations. The interview also makes me realize that the friend that I used to run on trail run together, apart from she's nice and everything else, she is actually a very deep thinker. And last but not least, by doing this interview online, it's actually improved my knowledge and skills with online educations tools such as Google Meets and so on. Thank you from me and stay tuned.
For the process, first I asked my friend if she could help me to complete this assessment through an online interview. She has agreed, and I asked to sign a consent form as an agreement before recording the interview. Then I have done the recording of the interview on 29 May 2021 and completed the editing on 30 May 2021. For the summary, my respondent considered that every country will check what the influence will brings to the people before they release the movie. So the movies nowadays has more good influence to younger generation. She doesn't agree that parents should intervention in monitoring the selection of movies for the younger generation because they could have their own thought and clear that what is happening around the world since young. And she feels that movies today have changed due to the trend because movies today prone to produce the more that come from the real story, such as Hi Bye Mom. This movie influenced her to become more appreciate the time she spent with her family and the people she loved. For a self-reflection, there are a lot of movies produced from the real story, and I just stated one movie that made me feel touched recently is Hi Mom. It is a Chinese comedy that tells the story of a woman who goes back to the 1980 after her mother died. What I have gained from the movie is that it influenced me to appreciate my parents and cherish the time with them because we do not know what is happening at the next moment. Thank you.
Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Imanina binti Subur. My metric number is BA20160896. I am the fourth presenter for Group 1. First, I would like to present of my part, which is telling the process of the interview. The process of my interview starts on 23 May 2021. I was asking my friend if I can interview her, but during the pandemic she was in quarantine that time, so we decided to do the interview through Google Meet. Finally, I can interview her about the impacts and influence of movies toward the younger generations. The summary from the interview, respondents said that there is a good and bad of movies nowadays that influence on today's younger generation. The good reason of influence is maybe the movie are related to family relation or friendship, while the bad things is because some content of movies nowadays are having sexual issue. Respondents said parents should play an important role to the younger generation do the selection of movies. It is because they are not mature enough to distinguish between good things and bad things. Maybe they will try the thing that they saw in the movies. From this interview, I learned to make a plan before doing an interview. Example like me and could have discussion before doing an interview. During the interview, I realized that I am improving my English skills because my speaking skills is not really good. So by these projects, it helps me a little bit on that. That's all from me. Thank you for watching.